Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to Lesson 15 in this series on developing a survival game. In this video, we'll set up our inventory widget. This is the UMG widget which will display our inventory, our menus, and in the next section, our equipment system as well. This series and this video have been brought to you by my Patreon sponsors. That said, open up your projects, and let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to the editor, and we are nearly at the stage where we can test our inventory system. I mean, we could actually do things earlier, but it would be a waste of time because it would eat up an entire video, and we'd pretty much have to undo what we did. So that's why we're doing this the long way. What we're going to do today is actually make our inventory widget. So just to save ourselves some time, let's start with going to our project settings, and in here we're going to create a new input event. So go down to input, and we need a way to open our inventory menu. So we're going to have a new action mapping with two inputs. And we're going to call this inventory. And for our keyboard and mouse players, this will be the key I. Select that. For our gamepad users, this will be gamepad, face button top. Unless you want to use a different button. Just make sure you're not using a button you use somewhere else. Or if you are, that you have condition checks that see what the player is trying to do. All right, we can close that out now. Remember, it auto saves. Next, let's go to our widget folder. And in here, in the main widget folder, we're going to create a new user interface widget called WBP Inventory UI. All right, just gonna Control S save everything real quick. Now I'm gonna pop open that window, pin it in here, and let's make a start on actually setting up our widget. So I'm gonna go and find something called blur. I believe that's under special effects. Yep, background blur. Just gonna drop that onto the canvas panel, and I'm gonna select the anchors to all four corners, and I'm going to set the offset on my blur to be 0 in the right and bottom. All right, so hey, we have a blur background, right? It's really blurry, we can't see anything. Okay, no, that's a bad joke. What we're gonna do is just set this to a value of 12.5. And now we do have a blurry background. This goes all the way up to 100. I like 12.5. You might not like it. You can pick a different number. This number has no real meaning outside of how blurry it is. When I say it has no real meaning, I mean it has no impact on the game. You might not even want a blurred background. I like blurred background. It makes me happy. All right, next we're gonna create our inventory window itself in here. Remember, we have our slots, and now we're gonna call those slots up in this window. How are we gonna do that? Well, we're gonna do it dynamically. We're gonna start by getting a vertical box, which is under panels. Sorry, I'm just gonna minimize that. Ooh, uncategorized. My text has finally showed up here in the common. That makes me happy. All right, so get a vertical box, drop that into the canvas panel, and we're gonna name this box our inventory anchor. Now, oftentimes I say, hey, the numbers I'm using for placement, things like that, don't matter. For now, please just follow what I'm doing, and I'm gonna tell you why right away. We are going to base the location of our sub-menu, so like our use item menu, our item details, our discard menu, etc., off of where this menu is located. Once you get all the other menus up and running, so the end of this section, feel free to move things around to find the positioning you like. But for now, just follow along with the numbers I'm using because we are basing it on where this one menu is. All right, move it to anchor on the center left. Set the position X to 400, the position Y to negative 165, the size in the X to 250, and the size in Y, leave it at 30. I am going to put a 0.5 alignment in X. That way it just is centering a little bit differently. And I'm gonna leave the Y as is. Now technically I'm gonna override all of this by clicking size to content, and notice the box gets really small. Don't worry about that. So in our inventory anchor, what we're going to have is a title box and our inventory system. So remember, this is a vertical box. Everything we put in here will be one on the top, then one below that, then one below that, then one below that. Not that we're putting that many things into it. So I'm gonna grab a border, and this is gonna be the top part of my box. This border will be my title background. It will be on fill. Don't worry if it's gonna fill the entire thing for now. We're gonna have other things in there. It will have a horizontal left align, or align left, with a vertical fill there. I am going to change the padding to 0 in all aspects, so just make sure that does change to 0 in all of them. I am going to change the color of my background and my brush. So in brush, I am going to set this to one of the shades of gray that I'll constantly use over and over again, and that will be 0.047. Okay, for these numbers, for your colors, yeah, feel free to deviate. The positioning is the part that I want you to follow along with. All right, with that done, in my background, I am going to find my custom WBPC text, drop it in there. Hey, we can see the background now. It stands out a bit against that blur. All right, for this is my inventory title text. Again, always label your widget elements or components or whatever you're adding in. So inventory title text, and all this is going to say is the word inventory. Pretty, right? Our font is pretty. I like our font. Leave the padding at 0, leave that as is. That's fine on the left align. We're gonna leave the default font size. In fact, everything else is going to stay the same. It just looks weird to me right now because I haven't done the next step. After that, we are going to grab a size box, and this will be what will change the size of our sort of interior menu here based on the number of slots that we have. So I'm gonna find in panels, I believe, size box, there it is. I'm gonna drop that into my inventory anchor. I'm gonna minimize the title background. So the size box will be my inventory size box. I often do boz instead of box. Okay, we're back to old typo habits. In our size box, we're going to have another border, and this will be our inventory's background. Now, really quickly on our size box, actually, we do want to change a few things. Again, this will actually be auto on our size box. We want a center horizontal align, and whoa. Sorry, I'm on the wrong thing. Size box will be auto, center horizontal align. We want a height override of 250. All right, and you can see the white bar in the center there. That is our border. Let's select our border now, and this is our inventory background. So inventory background. Right, with our inventory background, we are going to do a horizontally align right. Everything else will remain the same up there, including the padding. The only thing we're going to change is the tint here. And for my tint, I am going to use the lighter gray that I'll be using, which is 0.41 by 0.41 by 0.41. And now notice that that white bar is gone. We now have a grayish bar. Inside of the border, we're gonna put a scroll box so we can scroll up and down in our inventory as we add more slots in. So under panels, you should find scroll box. Drop that in there. And this will be our, well, take a guess. I'm gonna name everything pretty similar here. Inventory scroll box. All right, for our scroll box, it is vital that you mark that it is variable. Otherwise, you will run into issues, like you won't be able to call up what we need to actually put things in here. That is all we're doing with this. That is literally it. Next, we are going to add a uniform grid. So a uniform grid is a horizontal and vertical panel together. You can move things horizontally or vertically. So uniform grid panel, drop that in there. And this is the inventory panel itself. So I'm going to name it inventory panel. Again, make sure to mark this as variable. Otherwise, nothing's going to work. All right. Really quickly, one thing I want to go back and do, because I just realized that color is slightly off, is I want to select my background again, and I'm going to change the alpha to 0.5. We want it to be slightly translucent. There we go. All right, back on our inventory panel here. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open our padding up, and we're actually going to have a uniform padding of 5. So this will create a bit of a padding around our inventory slots that we created in the last video. Now, what is this going to look like? Well, let's just take a quick preview. We have our inventory slot. We're going to drop one in there. We're going to just drop another one in there. I'm going to move the second one to the right. We're going to drop another one. I'm going to move that to the far right there. Do that. So this is what it's going to end up looking. Really? Have I really messed that up that badly? I mean, it doesn't really matter what order these are going in. So that's what's going to end up looking like. We'll have 2 rows of that to start with. I'm just going to delete those because we're going to add them in a different way. But there is our inventory box. All right, we're going to do one more thing before we go into the functionality of this. We're going to add ourselves a lovely little close button. So I'm actually going to be able to close this menu in 2 different ways. Grab a button, drop it on your canvas panel. This will be our close button. Sorry, I want to keep my Pascal casing. I'm going to anchor it to the top right corner. Okay, on the alignment for this one, you can deviate. Just be mindful not to go too far down because our equipment system will be under this button. I'm going to set the alignment to 2 and the X and negative 0.5 in the Y. I'm going to size the content. You notice the button just shifts over randomly like that. That's fine. I'm going to change nothing else in our friendly little button here, but I am going to add our custom text. And now we have a really weird button that says text block. All right, this is our close button text. For our close button text, I am going to change the alignment, sorry, not the alignment, the padding to 10 in all areas. I am going to change this to be space, X space. And I'm just going to click off of that so we can see that it was moved over there and we have our lovely little box. Everything else will remain the same on this. There we go. We now have a close button in the corner there. All right, compile, save. Whoa, why is this not compiling? Give me 1 second. All right, sorry, for some reason I had to actually exit that window, hit save all, and then I could compile it. I don't know why I did that. I'm just going to nod and smile and be happy it compiled. So again, if it's not compiling for you, just switch to this window, save all, compile. Or, okay. There we go, see? I don't know what's glitching out on me, but something is glitching out. That said, I've had some interesting issues with this widget in the last version. It's actually the menu that we're going to place in here on this side that kept deleting itself. And to give you an example, here is the last recording file. Notice I've named it good because I kept getting it, this kept deleting itself. By the way, this is what our menu is going to look like by the end of section 3. It's not going to look that weird, trust me, in actual gameplay. Okay, the icon will look just as weird. All right, get rid of event pre-construct, get rid of event tick, move construct up here, and we're going to create a few custom events. So custom event 1 is going to be set up inventory. This actually will also set up our equipment system in section 3, or actually trigger the setup for that. The other thing we want to do is we want to start working on our close menu real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the close button and I'm going to do our on clicked. We're going to have a second custom event that's tied to this. So custom event called close inventory. These 2 events will do exactly the same thing. Now let's just very quickly put these into my usual components category. All right. With this setup as is, we're going to just go up to our event construct. We are going to call our setup inventory. We are going to give ourselves a little bit of space because we're going to have another setup event right here. And we're going to do listen for input action. This node allows for us to use input actions. So if we go to settings real quick, and I'm doing this for 2 reasons. It allows for us to listen for these events, or actually in particular, all these events. I'm going to copy inventory to be really lazy. We're listening for a particular event. We're listening for inventory. So we're listening for this. We're listening for the I to be pressed or the game face button top to be pressed. So, and that is when it's pressed. So we're setting it to it's been pressed. Yay, we're good. Make sure that this is marked as true. It must be consumed. What we can do is plug this all the way down to this close inventory. So this is how we're going to open and close the inventory with 1 button press. And that way if the player changes what their open inventory button is, this will also still know, hey, that new button, they changed it from I to, for some reason, Q. It will listen for Q because it's listening for the event name, not the button itself. We're going to create event instead of dragging all the way down there because you know how I feel about that. And we're going to look for close inventory. All right. I'm going to just move these a little bit further down. What we're going to do is start with the setup inventory. we're going to do a branch here, and we want to make sure that this widget is enabled. So get is enabled. We're doing it on self. Just plug that into there. So if we are enabled, we are going to do stuff. We are going to set up our inventory slots. So this is where it gets a bit, we're doing things a bit backwards. We are going to fill this box, the center one, with children. And the children are going to be the slot we made in the last video. However, every time we open and close this, we're going to delete the boxes and refill it so we can update our inventory. We delete them to clear, we clear them to prevent duplications. So find your inventory panel, grab it. We are going to clear children. We don't have children yet, I realize, but we're going to make children. That sounds wildly inappropriate. And next, we're going to create an array of something we don't have yet either. So this is going to be a bit weird as well. The array will be our inventory slots. This will be our category is our slot widget. Give you an idea what this is going to be. We're going to look for our WBP inventory slot, and we want an array of them because we're going to have more than one. We are going to then grab that, get that, and we are going to clear it. All right. Now we have another pause we need to do, as we need to head over to our interfaces because we want to get data from these slots, and we need to pass that data through. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our core, interfaces, inventory. In our inventory, we want to actually, we're going to create two things just to save ourselves some time. We are going to get slots data. So that's the first thing. That's one we need right now. Get slot data. This will be of this will have one return. It will be our slots data. It will be of our F inventory slot. It will be an array of them though. We're getting the actual slots that we have in our inventory. We're going to put this in widget related. And we're going to create one more function just to save time called GetInventoryActorReference. So remember how we had that actor reference earlier? This is where we're filling it. Now, again, we're going to have one return. I'm also just going to set this to a single tic-tac, single variable. I could do BP inventory, but that's going to create a hard loading of that. So what I'm going to do is cheat. I'm going to use a parent class. I'm going to get our beige circle of actor, and this will be our inventory actor. I use actor to remind myself that, hey, this actually isn't a hard reference. Well, it is a hard copy, but it's a hard copy of actor. We're getting the actor. I'm going to create a new category called references. All right, I'm going to compile that, and I'm going to go over to our core actor inventory, BP inventory. Hello, BP inventory. In here, under get slots data, all I'm going to do, I'm going to get my inventory settings, and I'm just going to pass out my slots data there. That's all this is doing. We're getting the number of slots and what's in those slots, really. So remember, there are 10 of them at the start. That's what we do here. We're setting amount to 10. So we have 10 slots at the start. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my references, and I'm just going to fill in my inventory actor. And this one that you can just put in self. There we go. All right. Yeah, we'll still load things into memory, but it doesn't load it automatically. So it makes things a little bit easier. That said, we actually will be making a hard copy of the inventory in the player. There is no way around that, unfortunately. But hey, that's fine. The player should be able to access the inventory. It's a one-directional access. The inventory can't access the player, but the player can access the inventory. That's what we want. All right, I am going to then, with a new variable called inventory actor. Yeah, that's why we created both those. Gonna do an actor. It, of course, will be the beige circle, which for some reason turns blue in here. I never quite understand some of the choices being made here, but whatevs. This will be something we can expose on spawn and edit. This will be a reference category. We are going to get it. We are going to get slot data. Actually, that should be get slots. That's going to really drive me wrong that the plural is wrong there because we're getting more than one. So it's slots data. I know it's a minor thing. I know it's really, really trivial, but it really does, it matters to me. Like we have more than one slot. We want to be clear that that's more than one thing that we're getting. And then we're gonna do a for each loop. So for each slot, what we're gonna do is spawn in a widget. And the widget we're spawning in is the slot itself. So what we're gonna do really quickly is take all these nodes, we're gonna collapse them down to a function. And this is SetUpInventorySlots. Slots, plural. I actually got that right, even though I said singular. Off completed, we'll have a return node. All right, cool. Next, what we're gonna do is create a new function called GetInventorySlots. So this, let's just, before I make my famous mistake, plug our GetInventorySlots into here. I totally forgot we need one input of our old friend, indexRef. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we set our indexRef actually here. When we size our box, or our inventory, we're setting our index references because they're the index in this array. We are then setting that in actuality in terms of functionality here. When we spawn in our boxes, we are taking that array element, which is the index, and we are passing it into each of our slots. How are we gonna do that, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Let's just line that up. What we're gonna do in here is we're gonna spawn in our widgets. So I'm just gonna create a quick local reference to our index, so indexRef local. We are going to pull off of here and do create widget. What widget are we creating? We are creating our WBP inventory slot, and notice indexRef. That thing that we exposed in the last video, we're passing that in. We're also gonna pass in the inventory actor. There we go. And we're now gonna promote this to a local variable, just so we have access to it, which is slot local, singular. So we are creating a slot and we're passing the index from the array element of our inventory. So we set the actual index in the inventory, but we make it functional here. All right, next, what we're going to do is we are going to actually put this somewhere useful for us. And this is gonna be a bit of that math stuff I was talking about earlier for our placement. We are gonna take our inventory panel, and we are going to add child. So now we are making the children to uniform grid. Plug that into there. Just move this aside for a moment. Plug content into there. You might have a slightly different layout. Give me 1 second to double check this isn't an engine version difference. So, there is a slight version difference. If you're on a newer version, I was wondering why my alignment was weird. Sorry, my alignment of the nodes was weird. There are 2 more pins than you'll see on my screen. One is in row, one is in column. Interestingly enough, you can skip some of what I'm about to do and move it over. So just follow along for a moment, at least the math. So if you're in a newer version of the engine, you can skip what I'm about to pull off of here. I'm going to do set row. Okay, you can skip that node. What I plug into here should go into your in row here. I'm going to do a reroute here real quick. Or you can follow along. In the newer version of the engine, this works just as fine as well. I am going to then do set column. Again, on a newer version of the engine, you can skip making this node. That said, again though, what you're going to want to do is put the math that I am going to put into the in column pin there in the in column on your updated version of this node. I guess Unreal or Epic has made that a little bit more accessible. There are those little changes I don't tend to notice sometimes. All right, so what we're gonna do here, I'm just gonna move that to the right a bit. Again, the math that I am doing, you can just plug into your version. I've given myself a bit of space because I know when I update this file that this is gonna add 2 rows in. I did not know that. The only reason I caught that was this was in the middle of the in row stuff, so hey. All right. What we're going to do is we are going to take our index reference local. We are going to get it. We are going to actually work slightly backwards in a moment. We're going to do truncate. So truncate turns a float into an integer. So you can read how it works, but it just rounds the float to an integer. We're going to do a float divided by float. And we're going to take our index ref. We are going to plug it into the top there, and we get that convert node. Again, all of this can be plugged into the in row here. And we are going to then decide how many slots do we want per row. So we're going to create a new variable called slots per row. Slots per row is a integer. It will be exposed on spawn and something that we can edit. I realized I was doing that backwards. I'm going to leave the default here as 0. I'm actually going to set this when we create our inventory widget. And I'm going to put this in something called settings. I'm going to get my integer. I am going to plug that into there. And so now we are setting our slots per row, and we are moving where the slot we're putting is at in our row based on the number of slots per row. So if this is 1 out of 5, that'll be in slot 1. 2 divided by 5 will be in slot 2. It makes things a little bit easier. Now, the reason why this exists is, well, 1 through 5 is really easy. Where's slot 6? Where's 7? Where's 8? Where's 9? Where's 10? So that's why we have this in here. Next, we're going to do something similar over here. We're going to start with our truncate, because we want to do the calculations as floats, but we need to make it an integer. We are going to do division, whole, and remainder. So this is a modular operator. In this case, we're getting the modular itself. Let me give myself a bit of space. And I am going to copy our index ref local, duplicate it over here. That is our dividend. And our divisor will be our slots per row. All right. After that, so now we've set the location. Again, you don't need these 2 nodes in newer versions. You just need to plug the math in, I think. I haven't tested it. I am guessing based on what it says. All right, we are going to get our slot local, and we are going to get our inventory slots. There we go. So this is an array of these things. We've cleared this earlier. Now we're going to add unique. So we're actually filling it with information. What information are we filling it with? The slot that we're currently looking at. So now that we've added our slot actually into our array, what we're going to do is we are going to trigger our slot again. So let's take our slot local, and we're going to run our update slot. So this is just going to trigger this event here. So let's plug that in. And we are done with this. We're going to put a return node in, and then I'll straighten everything up. So I'm going to grab all these nodes, just really do that, break that, and there we go. Plug that back in now. And of course, that happens. I'm going to break both of those and hit Q. Now I'm going to plug those in. And we have a nice straight line. Okay. So now that we have that, we need to actually get our inventory menu onto our character. So we're going to go over to our character now, and we are going to set up our, we're going to set up our character. Then we're going to come back to the inventory menu and set up our close features. So let's open our first person character up. We actually have 2 things we need to do in here. We need to, 1, actually spawn our inventory system. So to do that, what we're going to do is create a function for this, but again, I'm going to do it my normal way of creating functions. We are going to spawn actor from class. We are going to spawn our BP inventory. And when we do that, ooh, okay. Let's go to our inventory. There's something missing here. Our beginning slot amount, we need to actually make this something that we can see. So what we're going to do for that is, again, make this something we can edit per instance and something that's exposed on spawn. We're going to compile and save real quick. And we also are going to just make sure we haven't missed anything else we need in there. Oh, that's it. Okay, let's go back to our player now. Let's refresh this node. And now we have our beginning slots. 10 is the number we want in there. We are going to then pull off the spawn transformation, and we're going to promote to variable, and this is just going to be an empty transform. I said transformation, I mean transform. And it's empty because that was defaulted to 0, so if we select that node again, it's all zeros. That's fine. We don't really need it to show up anywhere in particular. And this one we are going to call and put into a category called defaults. Just leave it like that. We are going to then pull from here, and this is, by the way, right here, that node is making a hard copy here. So, as I said, we're gonna have a hard copy. It's gonna be GetInventoryActorReference. That is the wrong one. That was a soft reference. We want GetInventoryActor. We want the message. And from there, we're gonna promote this to a variable called InventoryActor. This will be a reference. So it's not with our main UI as a reference. So those are all hard references. We're going to select these 3 nodes. We're going to collapse them down to a function called createInventory. So now our character has an inventory. Of course, we can't fully access it yet. We'll put it in a folder called Game Settings, or a category that we call Game Settings. Let's go in here. Let's just fix this up a tiny bit. Add our return node. And next, we need to actually create our widget. So let's go back to our event graph. We have our make widgets, which we don't have the return node in, because I said we're going to do more in here. We are going to create widget. It will be of our type WBP inventory UI. We have our inventory actor we can now pass in. And we are going to set our slots per row as a default to 5. So we have 2 rows of 5. We're going to promote this to a variable, and this will be our inventory widget ref. We're going to put that into our references. And then we're going to have a return. I really should have named that category references. We are done with that. We can close both of these out. And let's go over to the right here. So to the right of our inventory events, and have our inventory widget events. And here what we're going to do is just search for inventory, because we have the action event inventory. So this is opening our inventory when we press I. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our inventory reference, or widget reference, add to viewport. Just plug that into there. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to put a reroute here, because we're going to pull off of here, and we're going to set, actually, what we're going to do, and this is where I do mean player controller, because we're in the player character. We're going to get player controller, and we are going to pull off the player controller and set input mode game and UI. It has to be game and UI, or our listen node inside our WBP in the event graph, this node here, will not work. So we'll have that. We'll turn off the hide mouse during capture. What's going to be in focus is this widget. Next, from our player character, we're going to do another pull off and do set show mouse cursor. We want to see the mouse cursor. Plug that into there, line that up, put a couple of reroutes in just to make this a bit neater and easier to read. And you don't really need this reroute. Actually, you don't need any reroute. So that's going to open our menu. And then we are going to go back to our core folder here, go to interfaces, go to player character, and in our player character, we are going to create a new widget related event. And yes, this is an event called close inventory. And I'm going to create a category called widget related. Gonna control S save. Actually, I'm gonna compile, not save. Then I'm gonna do close inventory. We want the event version, not the interface call. And here we're gonna kind of reverse this. We are going to get our player controller. We are going to set input mode game only. And I'm going to just duplicate my show mouse cursor. We are going to hide our mouse cursor. We are not going to remove the widget from the screen on our close. We'll do that elsewhere. All right, just put a reroute in here. Pull up, don't pull the reroute. Pull off the reroute there. And I'm going to comment this section out because this is done, but it's just part of our inventory system. So let's open and close inventory menu commands. I'm going to save. Back in our WBP inventory UI, what we're going to do is we're going to set this event up for the closing of our menu. So I am going to get player character, and I'm going to make a interface message call to close inventory. All right, I'm just going to plug that into there, and then from our close inventory, plug that into there. And then the last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to have things between this, so this is the last thing, but we're going to remove from parent. So we'll have other events that go on between this. We'll actually have 3 events. One of them technically is 3 events times 5, but we'll take care of that down the road. We are now at the stage where we can test our inventory, or at least the menu. So let's hit play, let's hit I, and you can see we have our slots. None of them are active. Let's press the close button, that works. Let's hit I again, hit I one more time, and it closes. Now you'll notice I can still move. We will take care of that towards the end of the series, but for now we'll leave that on. And you can see that it still will acknowledge when we pass over items. So we now are nearing the stage where we can test things out. We're nearly done with our inventory system. In the next video, what we're going to do is we are going to make it so that we can actually pick up items and see them in our inventory. We won't be able to do anything with them yet. We'll take care of that after we can confirm we can pick and add items to our inventory. So we're going to test everything we've done so far over the next 2 videos. That said, if you've enjoyed setting up your menu, if you enjoyed working on your inventory system, make sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help this channel out. And it lets people who might not be aware of this series find the series more easily, because YouTube runs on likes. And if you want to be here when we start finishing out our inventory system, at least the base part of it, make sure to hit that subscribe and follow the mannequin eyes. I'm making that joke again. The notify bell, because if you don't hit the notify bell, YouTube might not tell you about the next video for quite some time. If you want to copy this project, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Patreon supporters at upper tiers get instant access to any project that I am running on YouTube. Patreon supporters at other tiers will get access to projects once the project is completed on YouTube. All of that said, if you just want to help support us, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Now, all of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial where we actually can pick up items. And I hope that you have a wonderful day.